When it comes to acceleration, I give this vehicle 8 out of 10 points. We scored 0 to 60 in 7.8 seconds in this hybrid model, which is very good for a hybrid. This is a few tenths of a second slower than you'll find in the ES300H or the Avalon hybrid, and it is a decent amount slower than the BMW Active Hybrid 3. But that BMW Active Hybrid 3 is a twin-scroll turbo 6-cylinder engine that also has an electric motor mated to it to improve performance. So it's really not going after efficiency, it's going after performance. That brings me very neatly on to fuel efficiency. I actually give this vehicle 10 out of 10 points when it comes to efficiency. Now you may think that odd, especially since Lincoln has had to restate their fuel economy numbers on the MKZ downwards from 47 miles per gallon to right around 38 or so. But I've actually been getting 37 to 38 miles per gallon in this vehicle, driving it very gently on the highway, on a level freeway without the air conditioning on. I was able to get about 48 or 49 miles per gallon, which is very good. And while that may not sound very exciting, the reason I give this 10 out of 10 points is because this does get the best fuel economy in this segment. I scored better fuel economy in this than I got in the Lexus ES300H or in the Lexus CT200H, which is considerably less powerful than this. And I also got better fuel economy than the BMW Active Hybrid 3. Now, of course, your fuel economy will vary greatly depending on how you drive the vehicle, and I do have to mention that especially in this car compared to something like a Lexus CT200H or an ES300H, because you can drive the MKZ much harder. This is a much better handling vehicle out on the road. It doesn't accelerate quite as fast as the ES300H, but it holds the road much better. The excellent handling is down to the tire selection in this hybrid. With 245 width tires all the way around, these are some seriously wide tires for a hybrid. And that's also why we don't get fuel economy that's up there in the 50s in this vehicle, because we have an awful lot more rubber out on the road. Now, if you get the V6 model or the 2-liter turbo model, you can get a summer tire package, and that helps bring handling to the next level, where I give it 9 out of 10 points. Really, the only thing out there that's going to really compete with that in terms of handling is going to be a BMW 3 Series, an Audi A4, or Mercedes-Benz C-Class with their sport packages. Now, tires make a huge difference out on the road, and that sport package is absolutely transformative with the MKZ. Of course, sport tires are more expensive, and you're going to wear them out sooner, so that is an increased cost for you out on the road. However, a handy thing to know is that Edmunds, when they tested the MKZ with the sport tires, they ran around a slalom just 1 mile per hour slower than a Porsche 911. That really is amazing for a vehicle like this MKZ. Now, as I've said before, ride and handling are normally opposite ends of the same stick. So you affect one, you're going to affect the other. If you tune a vehicle for a nice, soft, compliant ride, you generally have an awful lot of wallowing in the corners, and that's going to affect the handling. That's not happening necessarily right here in the MKZ. I actually give this 9 out of 10 points when it comes to the ride. This has a very controlled ride because we have an adaptive damping system standard on the MKZ, and that's not something that you normally find even in luxury categories at this price. It is fairly uncommon, but it really does make the MKZ drive better out on the road. Out on a road like we're on right now, which is California Highway 1, you can tell that this vehicle really soaks up road imperfections very well. You don't feel every little pothole or every little ridge on the road when you're out here on this kind of road right here. However, if we go out on a winding mountain highway, the vehicle really stays very taut. We have some decent anti-roll bars in this car, so we don't have a whole lot of body to lean. We don't have a whole lot of pitch and dive in this vehicle, and it really hugs the road very, very well. The dynamic suspension system has 3 different modes. There's Sport, Normal, and Comfort. Sport is obviously the stiffest, and Comfort is obviously the least firm. I actually prefer Comfort because even though this is the least firm mode in the MKZ, it still has a very solid, very European feel to it. Sport is definitely firmer, but the difference between the modes is not quite as great as some other vehicles that have dynamic suspension systems in it. When it comes to cabin noise, I give this 9 out of 10 points. Lincoln pulled really deep in their bag and gave this MKZ all the latest in sound deadening technologies, from laminated side glass, which employs 2 pieces of glass and a piece of plastic on the inside sandwiched together to help reduce noise, to an active noise cancellation system in this vehicle, and lots of foam throughout the cabin to help reduce cabin noise. We also have a decent amount less engine noise in this variety, even though we are driving the 4-cylinder hybrid model, and 4-cylinder hybrids tend to be a little bit louder out on the road. Compared to the competition, this is definitely quieter than most of the entries, including the Lexus ES300H. It is not, however, as quiet as the BMW 3 Series, the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, or the Audi A4 in certain configurations. When it comes to the braking score, the MKZ scores another 8 out of 10 points. Fade resistance is very good, even in this hybrid model that we're testing right here. The transition between regenerative braking and friction braking isn't quite as smooth as it is in the new Honda Accord. However, Transitions between EV mode and engine mode are definitely smoother than you'll find in that Accord. But overall, stopping distances were very good, braking fade resistance was very good for this as well. Now, not that I think a Honda Accord Hybrid competes directly with the Lincoln MKZ Hybrid by any stretch of the imagination. However, the Honda Accord was one of my favorite vehicles this year, and the MKZ is also one of my favorite vehicles, so I think that a comparison in terms of drivetrain is definitely warranted. The Honda Accord Hybrid is a true serial hybrid below about 44 miles an hour or so. It is not possible for the gasoline engine to directly power the wheels below that speed. Above that speed, the engine can either power a generator and then have electricity shuttled on over to a motor and then power the motor to power the wheels and make the car go, or it can close a clutch pack and it can directly connect the engine to the wheels via a fixed ratio. Now, that's important to keep in mind because that transition point from one style of drive to the other is not as smooth as it is in something like this hybrid right here that we're driving. In terms of safety systems, we find all the usual suspects on this vehicle, from front parking sensors and rear parking sensors available to an available blind spot monitoring system with cross-traffic detection. That uses a radar sensor mounted in the rear bumper that can actually detect if traffic is crossing your path if you're backing out in sort of a supermarket parking lot situation. In addition to that, we also have a radar adaptive cruise control system in this particular vehicle. It's important to keep in mind that this is not a full speed range system, so the system will only take you down to about 10 miles an hour or so. It won't take you to a complete stop. After about 10 miles an hour, it will actually tell you that you need to take over, and it will release the accelerator pedal and the brake pedal, and you've got to take over on your own. It will still warn you about collisions, however. Now, that collision warning system is, I think, one of the best in the industry. It's very similar to the way the Volvo system operates. There's a row of LEDs right up there on the dashboard that I showed you earlier, and they flash very brightly at you if it thinks that you're going to be involved in a collision. In addition to the flashing, it'll also mute the audio and play a very loud sound. That collision warning is very, very noticeable. It's an awful lot more noticeable than a wide variety of the other collision systems, because most of the collision systems out there, they just flash something on the little LCD inside the instrument cluster, or maybe they have a very soft beep. Some of the Acura systems have a very tiny 2 or 3 LED display right there on the dash doing the same sort of thing, but this has a wide and very bright bar. It's especially bright at night, so there's really no way of missing this. Now, in addition, our MKS also has a lane keeping assistance system. It has a camera right up here that's constantly monitoring the lane lines on the road, and it will help steer you back in the lane if it thinks you're going to cross one. Now, rather than some of the Infiniti systems which apply the brakes on either side of the vehicle to sort of torque vector you into the lane, this will actually turn the steering wheel with the electric power steering system. I initially thought that the MKZ 2.0T would be my favorite model out on the road. It definitely feels a little bit lighter, especially in the nose, than the 3.7-liter V6 model. And because it has a turbocharger, it doesn't really produce that much less oomph overall than the V6 model. The V6 model is still going to be the faster model out on the road, but the 2.0T handles a little bit better, and I think it feels a little bit sharper. But in actuality, it's this hybrid model that I really enjoyed the most out on the road. You still have that decent weight balance in terms of this versus the V6 vehicle. It is a little bit heavier, of course, because of the battery pack in the back and some of the other hybrid componentry, but it is still relatively light. Now, coupled with that, we have the really wide tires all the way around, which makes this hybrid handle extremely well. In fact, there is very little difference in terms of handling between this and the front-wheel drive versions of the V6 or the 2.0T. 188 system horsepower is still more than adequate to do passing maneuvers like I just accomplished there, of course within a legal speed limit on the road that we're on right now. And overall, this is still an awful lot of fun, and actually more fun than I had expected out on my favorite winding mountain roads. Now, all of that is coupled with the fact that I have been averaging about 37 to 38 miles per gallon in this vehicle, which is absolutely excellent, makes this among my favorite vehicles that I have driven this year. We also have some very comfortable seats, and overall, the best thing about the hybrid is that Lincoln hasn't chosen to hobble this model with limited options or something like that. Some manufacturers, for some reason, choose to not put the same options in every trim level of their vehicle, and Lincoln allows almost every option to be sold regardless of which engine you choose. One notable exception seems to be that summer tire package, which doesn't appear to be available on the hybrid model. Lincoln has made pricing for the MKZ a lot simpler than in the past. Things start out at $34,190 for the 2.0T turbo model, $35,190 for the hybrid model. Then we get $35,460 for the V6 model. That's pretty much your engine choices right there. Then you just choose feature levels. If you want all-wheel drive, the all-wheel drive 2.0T starts at $36,080, and the all-wheel drive 3.7-liter V6 starts at $37,310. After you've selected the engine and which wheels are going to do the driving for you, you select from one of 3 different packages: the Select package, the Preferred package, and the Reserve package, and that dictates your feature option level. From that point, there are only a few standalone options like that large panoramic moonroof that the MKZ is being known for, the wide summer tires that are available in the 2.0T as well as the V6 models. I would definitely get those tires if it were me. We also get the inflatable rear seat belts and the multi-contour seats. Now those inflatable rear seat belts and the multi-contour seats for me are must-have options. If you check all the option boxes on a 3.7-liter V6 all-wheel drive model, you will end up right around $50,000. On our particular model here, which is a nicely loaded hybrid model, as tested, it's $47,190. Let's start out our comparisons by talking about the elephant in the room, which is the Ford Fusion. If you think the Lincoln MKZ isn't worth the extra price versus the Ford Fusion, then I don't think you really know what the price versus the Ford Fusion is, because similarly configured and adjusting for feature content, a Fusion ends up only $800 less expensive than this vehicle, because there are a lot of standard features on the MKZ that you just can't get on that Fusion, like LED headlamps, a lot of the available features on the inside, etc. Once you add up the value of all of those, you deduct them from the base price of the MKZ, and you take a look at a Ford Fusion, the Ford Fusion's only $800 less. And that's before you even take into account the fact that the Fusion has 1 year shorter warranty than the Lincoln, and you don't get as nice of a dealer experience. My value score for the MKZ comes in at 10 out of 10, and it's not just because of that Ford Fusion. This is also $6,300 less than a similarly configured Lexus ES 300H. And the Lexus ES 300H I didn't quite like on the inside. It actually has a relatively low rent feeling interior. I much preferred the interior of the Toyota Avalon to the Lexus ES 300H, and this is several steps above that Lexus in all honesty. This is a solid $13,000 less than an Acura RLX, which is currently the best competition for something along these lines. The Acura TL is getting a little bit old, and I haven't had a chance to review the TLX yet. However, this vehicle is actually almost the same size as the RLX. It's not really an Acura TSX style vehicle. Now, even when comparing this to something like a hybrid Toyota Avalon, this comes in $1,700 less expensive. You get a better brand name and you get a nicer interior. Now, the value comparison when it comes to the discount Germans depends on what you're after, because a similarly configured Mercedes-Benz CLA to the 2.0T MKZ, it's still going to be a little bit less expensive. However, you're going to get 10 inches less car, and a lot of that length actually comes out of the back seat in the CLA. You really can't fit me in the driver's seat and anyone in the seat behind me. There's just not enough legroom in that CLA. Even though the headroom in this MKZ is a little bit limited, it's an awful lot more limited in that CLA. Now, the Audi A3 is just about as practical as this, but it doesn't offer the same level of features or the same amount of room on the inside. Price-wise, the MKZ compares very well with the S60, although you do get some features in this that you don't get in the S60 and a few features in the S60 that you don't get in this vehicle. Like the S60 has the active collision mitigation system called City Safety that will autonomously brake you. This vehicle doesn't have that, but the S60 doesn't have nice features like the available 10.2-inch LCD instrument cluster or the LED headlamps. The high horsepower S60 options are going to be faster off the line in this vehicle thanks to their turbochargers. However, the hybrid version of this is by far the most fuel efficient. Compared to the Lexus CT200H, we get better performance, better handling, and a great deal more interior room and nicer trappings than the MKZ. Versus something like an Audi A4, the BMW 3 Series, or the Mercedes-Benz C-Class, this is going to be significantly cheaper and relatively similar features overall. I do think that new 2015 Mercedes-Benz C-Class has a much nicer cabin, but you're definitely going to pay for it. If you're after a luxury hybrid and you're not interested in the 2 Lexus models that I've mentioned or the MKZ, your only real option in this category is the BMW Active Hybrid 3, and it's a great deal more expensive than this. My bottom line with the MKZ is that this isn't just a vehicle that I would heartily recommend, this is actually a vehicle that I would buy myself. This vehicle has the right combination of performance, handling ability, fuel economy, decent looks, and most importantly, interior comfort for me. I really like all the technology features that you can get in the MKZ, and I really like the fact that you can get the multi-contour seats. Comfortable seats, gadgets, and excellent handling are very high priorities on my list, and the MKZ really excels in those areas. It does let us down just a little bit by not having full speed range cruise control, but hopefully that's something that Lincoln can correct in the future. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. Again, I'm Alex Dykes, and this has been the Lincoln MKZ. Go ahead and click that banner at the bottom of your screen so you can be updated on all of my latest videos. You can find me over at facebook.com/AlexandAutos, over at Twitter as AlexandAutos. You can always email your questions to alex@alexandautos.com. I'll see you next week. I have been ready at your hand to grant whatever you would crave. I have wagered both life and land, your love and goodwill for to have.